Hello, thank you for clicking my video. In today's video, I'm gonna show you the difference between 90s and modern style anime bodies. And I'm only gonna do the female body because I feel like female body has the most obvious difference change, I guess. Okay, so modern. Okay. I'm gonna keep them the same pose. So to break it down, I think the most obvious or the easiest way I can say it is that 90s anime bodies, they are hourglass shapes, while in the modern they're like pear shaped body types. I think it's a bit more obvious in the 80s, I guess. In the 80s, the female body tend to be more, how do you say, more realistic in a way, like the way they draw the body proportions. In modern anime style bodies, they, of course, I'm not saying they aren't realistic, but it's a bit more, how do you say, exaggerated, I guess. And also they have really small upper bodies and then really big lower bodies, and then they have really big boobs. And then I don't know, it's okay. Sorry if I'm going really fast for some of you guys. I guess I'm just more used to doing it like this. I've seen other people's tutorial videos where they would, like, how do you say, just this kind of step where they sketch out the body. They how to say, they make like all these circles, and then they have, like, how do you say, they break everything down a lot. And I mean, everyone has their own way of drawing the base, the body, and whatever you're comfortable, it's okay. I just gotten used to it. I think in my early years of drawing, I tend to spend more time in this specific step, but as I keep drawing more, you know, it's kind of like muscle memory. Your body and brain just like got used to it, and you don't really have to focus too much on this. Like, just like, I've, you know, some artists, they're super skilled. All they have to do is just like draw a really simple stick figure, and then they can go right to inking, and then their body will kind of like figure out where everything is where, and then draw everything perfectly. So just practice makes perfect. Of course. You know, it still depends on, you know, your if you know, if you have potential, but, you know, always practice. Okay, so let's see, and I'll drop a paper over it so that you guys can, how do you say, see the final drawing better. Can't fit it in. Okay, so like my previous video with the face and just like the head, this doesn't apply to all the style of the 90s and the modern anime styles. Every decade there's gonna be like a whole different, you know, type of styles out there. But as I said before, this is just like the more obvious one that I've seen. And so, okay, so I'm not gonna draw the head. I'm gonna skip over the head, just go into the body part. Okay, so like I just said before, 90s, pretty much a hourglass figure. Back in the 90s, I noticed that they would, how do you say, make this part of the body almost the same size as the hip. So that's one thing to, how do you say, keep in mind. Um, and also just like the video I did before, they also tend to, how do you say, exaggerate the curves of the body. So I guess like they will be super wide on the top and on the hip right here, these two parts, but then in the middle for the hip they will make it, how do you say, they will make them really skinny. Oh, also another thing that I noticed is for the chest area, the chest, they also kind of draw it differently in the 90s compared to modern, I guess. What is the best way to how do I say this? I feel like back in the 90s, they tend to make them more round, like perfect circles, like that. If that makes sense. And also for the cleavage, they will make it in like lines. Like the cleavage will be like a few lines like that, instead of just one straight line. While in modern, they tend to make it a little bit more like a water, how do you say, water droplet, like, how do you say, like that. Yeah, so that's one thing I noticed. So yeah, so 90s, the chest, more of a perfect circle. And then these lines for the cleavage. Sorry, this kind of turned indecent, but I feel like this is one important factor to point out. Okay, and then modern anime, you know, chest, a little bit more water droplet kind of look, and the cleavage is just one line. Okay, and then like wider shoulders, I guess. Okay, and I said before, they tend to keep the upper body a bit more wide, so this part like that, a bit more bigger. And while in modern anime, they tend to be, how do you say, smaller like that, like a bit more, not as curvy, kind of like this, and then 90s like that, in a way. Kind. Okay, and then modern anime, how do you say, just a bigger hip compared to the upper body, like a pear-shaped body. Oh, and this is kind of hard for me to show, but I realized that in 90s, the way they draw the hand, their hand tends, the finger at least, the fingers tend to be more, how do you say, more like a chubby, fat finger. I don't draw like that, so it's hard for me to do it. But if you watch Sailor Moon, I think it's more noticeable in Sailor Moon Super S. All their fingers are like, how do you say, like kind of like chubby, like that, and you don't really see the, how do you say, the way the you don't see the knuckles. like that. Like in 90s, the fingers are always like really thick and no knuckles. While in modern anime, you can depending on which style, but I feel like nowadays they all tend to draw the hand really realistic, at least. Like showing every part of the finger that, you know, that bends in, bend out, like the knuckles, all that. Yeah, sorry, it's a little bit messy, but hope you get what I mean. Oh yeah, and then also in 90s animated bodies. In the female body, around the hip or the waist, there is a bone right there, and usually I don't think you really see it unless the person's really skinny or they're really toned. But in 90s anime, I think they tend to emphasize this bone, this bending part a lot, like that. Like the female body has that bone right there, like but then in modern anime I don't really see them showing that. It's kind of like a perfect curve instead of having that bone popping out. So that's one thing to notice. Okay, so yeah, that part right there, you don't really have to, but I personally do it a lot because I think it looks better. Yeah. And then modern anime is just like a perfect curve. Oh, and then also after the bone, you will have a little, how do you say, an indent on the hip side before you go down to the thigh. I guess, how do you say, like, if that if you can really tell. So we have the bone right there, and then on the side we have a little indent, and then we go to the thigh part, which is curvy. Yeah, so bent, indent, and then the thigh. Personally, I prefer the 90s body more. Back in the 90s, it's either really cutesy and exaggerated, or really realistic and, how to say, it's like a good balance between like the realistic drawing of the body and then a good mix of the cute, how do you say, a little bit non-realistic exaggerated body that you see in anime. I'm not sure how to explain it, but if you watch a lot of 90s anime, maybe you understand what I mean. And then and then another thing in the 90s anime, the body is that the thighs, or the leg in general, it tends to be really, how do you say, they tend to make it really thick, if it makes sense. So how to explain it? Like they'll have super long legs, and then but then it'll be, how do you say, kind of fat in a way. Kind of like Sailor Moon. As a child, I watched Sailor Moon, and then never really thought about it. But when I grew up, I keep noticing that they keep drawing the legs super long. And how do you say, just like a elongated oval, if that makes sense, like a really elongated oval. And in modern anime, they, how do you say, it's more skinny, like the legs are more on the skinny side, like it's kind of like this, like an elongated oval, but then at the bottom it gets smaller, like it goes in. And then another thing is, at the ankle part, at the ankle, the ankle, it won't really be skinny in real life. The leg, when you go to the ankle, so after the muscle at the top of the leg, it will go in, and then we'll have that little knuckle part right there, and then it will get a little bigger, like that. So this part, it will go really in, but in the 90s anime, the feet, the angle, I mean, they don't really have an angle, and their feet is kind of chubby, like that. Sorry if that doesn't look the best. I usually draw the leg in like this instead of like with those chubby ankles. Ankles. Okay. And then modern anime, really skinny legs, really skinny ankles, and skinny feet. Okay, so that's kind of about it. I don't think, not sure if I explained everything correctly. It's a little bit hard. I do notice some differences, but not as much. But yeah, so that's the main difference. The circular chess versus the droplet chess. The hourglass figure versus the pear-shaped figure. The this bone on the waist hip versus the non-existent bone on the hip, and the chubby legs and chubby ankle versus skinny legs and skinny ankles. I guess that's the main difference. Yeah, this video didn't really turn out that great, I feel like, but hopefully you learned something. I think so I feel like there's a much bigger difference in the 80s versus modern than the 90s. 80s in 80s they tend to, how do you say, have bodies that's like in the DC and Marvel universe, like their bodies are super realistic, like the top is really wide, not super small, and the chests are like not like super big like modern anime, and they have realistic hips, body proportions, and then in the 90s I think is when people started to experiment. There's some people that still stick with the realistic type of bodies, and then some other people who do these really stylized body. I think one example is I'm thinking Revolutionary Girl Utena, where everyone is super skinny, super long limbs, and then they have pointy chins. Everything is like super angular, and then as we go into the 2000s, we start, how do you say, you start seeing more similarities in the modern anime. The bodies are really, how do you say, it's not that they're not realistic, but they're getting a little bit, how do you say, really, how do you say, they're like realistic but also unrealistic at the same time. Because I don't think in real life, like, girls would have such big chests and such a small upper body while having such a big hip. Maybe someone out there will have a body like that, but I think it's just like the male fantasy getting out of hand. Like, everyone just keep wanting to make like the chest and the hip bigger, and then the top body smaller, and I don't know. I mean, in the end, it depends on you, how you draw, and if you happy with what you draw, then that's okay. If not, I don't know. Some people, they want to draw really realistically, as realistic as possible. I mean, it doesn't. In the end, art is subjective. If you are happy, if you're happy with what you produce, then I guess that's good enough. Well, oh my god, sorry this video is kind of didn't went that well. I originally wanted to, how to say, make this video like my old videos, where I record everything, speed it up, and then have the text at the bottom. But I thought that the text will be too distracting, so I you know, I'm thinking maybe from now on, even for my like tutorial videos, I'll also like talk, so you guys can focus your eyes on me drawing and then just listening to me talk, you know, instead of having to read the text at the bottom. So I don't know. Let me know if I did a good job or not. And also this is my idea for my next video. I'm thinking maybe I can do 90s hairstyles. 80s and 90s hairstyles. I feel like the hairstyle back then is also really distinctive and different compared to the modern style. So I'm thinking of that. Another maybe I can do male bodies. Because I feel like all I've been drawing is girls, so maybe something with the male body is good. But personally, I feel like the male body hasn't really changed that much. The only change is that the male body, they got really skinny. They're not buff like they used to be. Like 80s, just like buff, super buff man. And then 90s, we still have buff man, but then slowly getting less toned. And then we just come to the modern, where it's just like a normal guy body. They're like a guy who grew up daily life peaceful. They don't work out, kind of like that. So style wise, nothing much really changed. That's why I don't know if I should do a video on that. But let me know if you guys want to see that. Maybe I can do that. So, but for now, I'm thinking next tutorial video just gonna be hairstyles. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed watching me talk about these things. But sorry I didn't do a good job. I'll get better in the future. And that's it. Thank you so much. Bye bye.